All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the VA Northeast Ohio Healthcare System as we celebrate the 77th Air Force birthday. I'm your Associate Director, Katina Stone Jones, and it's great to be with you this morning. We are honoring one of the most technologically advanced and professional Air Force in the history of the world. The United States Air Force has a proud and spectacular history from the airspace above us, the outer space above us, and the cyberspace all around us. The United States Airmen have defended our nation with great substance and style. We are looking forward to having this ceremony and a great celebration. We will start with the presentation of colors by the John Buchtel Community Learning Center Air Force Junior ROTC, the singing of the national anthem by Tom Wentz, Chief of Community and External Affairs, an invocation offered by Chaplain Renee Shear, a welcome message from the Assistant Director, Robert Jastrom, the reading of the history of the Air Force by Nurse Manager Donette Zatonic, remarks by our honored guest speaker, Major Jared Moon of Kent State Air Force ROTC, Detachment 630, the benediction read by Chaplain Renee Shear, an Air Force birthday cake cutting ceremony, the playing of the Air Force song, and finally, we will share the birthday cake and conclude the ceremony. With that, please stand for the presenting of the colors and our national anthem.
Color guard to the shop. Carry colors. Forward. March. Color guard. Halt. Present. Arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order. Arms. Forward. March.
All right, thank you to the John R. Buchtel Community Living Center, Air Force, Junior ROTC, and Tom Wentz for that rendition of the national anthem. Now I would like to welcome Chaplain Renee Shear, who will offer the invocation.
Good morning. I am honored to be with you. I am Chaplain Rena Shear, and I invite you to open your hearts and enter a time of prayer. Eternal and loving God, on this anniversary of the founding of our nation's Air Force, our thoughts turn to the men and women who have worn the Air Force uniform during these past 77 years. Their sacrifice and devotion to duty paved the way for freedom, justice, and peace for our nation and for so many others. As we enjoy the blessings of safety and fellowship today, may the example of those who came before us inspire all of us to a deeper commitment to the ideals for which they gave so much. Guide and protect our brothers and sisters deployed throughout the world, our Air Force veterans, and comfort the loved ones of those who are absent, having given the fullest measure of devotion for us and our nation. May blessings ever rest on the United States of America, and may a reign of peace be established throughout our world. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Shear. Now I'd like to welcome our Assistant Director, Rob Jastrom, for some remarks in honor of this special day.
Good morning, everyone. So I had the honor of making remarks at this ceremony last year, and honestly, I've become a little bit obsessed with the Air Force. So I am just ecstatic to be here and celebrate the 77th birthday of the United States Air Force and really celebrate the men and women that have poured their lives and hearts into this branch of the military. With a mission to fly, fight, win air power anytime, anywhere, whether full-time, part-time, in and or out of uniform, everyone who serves plays a critical role in helping us achieve mission success. So whenever I read this mission statement, two things really come to mind. One, I think we could all relate to this. This is the epitome of teamwork and functioning at a high level. And I know that we all strive to do that here at the VA Northeast Ohio Healthcare in providing world-class care to our veterans. Every single person here plays a role in that, and I think this mission statement really highlights the importance of that. The second thing that I experience when I read this is I get goosebumps every time I read this mission statement. It's just something that gets me fired up, so I thought that would be a good way to kick things off here this morning on this beautiful day. And over the last year, I've also realized the abundance of Air Force veterans that I work with and we work with on a day-to-day basis. And in having at-length conversations with those folks, as well as our veteran Air Force patients, there's really one thing that stands out when having those conversations, and that is just the twinkle in their eyes and really just the energy that they talk about the Air Force with. Every time there is just a sense of pride and confidence that is exuded, and I think it's just contagious being around those types of folks. So I just wanted to say thank you for all those folks that really bring that type of energy on a day-to-day basis. And in addition to those things that they bring, they also spoke about the profound impact that the Air Force has had on their lives, providing them with the foundation to be successful, to streamline into the civilian world. And I think we've seen that firsthand here at the VA Northeast Ohio Healthcare System. I will leave you with a quote from the aviation pioneer, General Henry Hap Arnold. Our Air Force belongs to those who come from ranks of labor, management, the farms, the stores, the professions and colleges, and legislative halls. Air power will always be the business of every American citizen. So today, we pay special tribute to the service and sacrifice of the United States Air Force. So please be sure to thank those veteran employees and those veteran Air Force patients who served. Aim high, fly, fight, win. Happy 77th birthday, United States Air Force.
All right, thank you for that, Rob. I really appreciated the focus on teamwork, what the Air Force does, what we do here in healthcare, and all our Air Force veterans that work here with us and bring us their service and skills. Now we will welcome Nurse Manager Donette Zatonic to read the Air Force history.
Good morning. The Department of the Air Force was created when President Harry S. Truman signed the National Security Act of 1947. It became effective September 18, 1947, when Chief Justice Fred M. Winson administered the oath of office to the first Secretary of the Air Force, W. Stuart Simpson, a position filled by presidential appointment. The Air Force vision is such. The Air Force states, will be a trusted and reliable joint partner with our sister services, known for integrity in all of our activities, including supporting the joint mission first and foremost. We will provide compelling airspace and cyber capabilities for use by the combatant commanders. We will excel as stewards of all Air Force resources in service to the American people while providing precise and reliable global vigilance, reach, and power for the nation. As Rob Jastrom stated, the Air Force mission is to fly, fight, win, air power, anytime, anywhere. Air Force Management, the Department of the Air Force incorporates all elements of the U.S. Air Force. It is administered by a civilian secretary appointed by the President and is supervised by a military chief of staff. The Secretariat of Air Help, the Secretary and the Chief of Staff direct Air Force mission. Happy birthday, Air Force. Thank you.
Thank you, Donette. All right, we are fortunate this morning. We have an honored guest with us, so I'd like you to help me welcome our guest speaker, Major Jared Moon of Kent State Air Force ROTC Detachment 630.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. It is a great honor and a privilege. Driving in here this morning, I had no idea that this place was here, that it looked like it did. What a gorgeous facility. I'm going to start with a little joke that I always kind of like, and I think it's particularly appropriate given our setting here today. There is a man. He's getting into his middle years, and always been a healthy man, but as he gets older, he's noticing that things don't work quite so well as they used to. Particularly his vision. He's always been very proud of his vision. It's always been very good, but it's starting to fail him a little bit, and he just doesn't want to admit it. So he spends a couple of years going to restaurants, doing this with menus in and out, trying to be able to see what it is, and his long-suffering wife finally gets sick of it and forces him to go see the optometrist. Reluctantly, he goes. So all of you have been to doctors before. He goes in, he meets the receptionist, he gets the clipboard, and he starts filling out the paperwork. Name, age, medical history, all this kind of stuff, but finally he's left with one box left. Purpose of visit. And if he puts it on paper, he knows it's going to be true, and he'll just have to admit that he's getting old. So he hems and he haws for a while, and eventually he comes up with a perfect answer what he put, and quickly writes down, arm too short, and gives it back to the receptionist. So I can understand that feeling. Sometimes I feel like my arm's getting a little too short to get out there, and one of these days I may have to wear glasses again too. But for now, it's just a pleasure to be able to speak with you and be able to share a couple of ideas. First off, I want to say thank you to the young folks over there who presented the colors. In a country where sometimes we get this impression that is pushed down on us that things are not going well, I look at young people like them and see the discipline and the honor that they show in joining Junior ROTC and presenting the colors of this country, and it gives me great faith and hope that the country is going to be in good hands. So, I've already introduced me. As I said, I'm Major Jared Moon, Kent State University. At Kent State, I joined 5 other cadre members, and we are responsible for the instruction and mentorship of approximately 80 cadets who hope to one day be Air Force officers. Now, that can be a great blessing or an affliction, depending on the day, but I truly enjoy it. It has been one of the greatest pleasures of my life. I actually hit 20 years last year, and I could have retired out of my last job, but I very much wanted to have an opportunity to continue to serve in the Air Force and do something I thought was really meaningful. And in this case, it is the instruction and mentorship of these kids. And I got to tell you, it is wonderful. So when I asked to speak at this event, I was faced with the obvious problem that every speaker is of what exactly to talk about. Well, the topic seemed pretty obvious, the Air Force birthday. But as I thought about it, I wondered, why are we making such a big deal out of a 77th birthday? It doesn't seem like a particularly interesting number, other than that we like double digits. 77 is great. But it's not a centennial. It's not a quarter, half, or bi-quarterly anything. Next year it'll be 78. Not nearly as interesting a number. Will we celebrate that next birthday the same way? Air Force isn't a person. If we forget its birthday, it's not going to care. It's not going to be sad. It's not going to miss the cake or the party. And tomorrow it will do exactly what it was going to do anyway. So why bother? We're going to get to that in a bit. First, I kind of wanted to talk about the Air Force as it relates to the history of flying in mankind. Now, obviously, there's a great history of the Air Force, and many of us all know that very well. But I've always been told, talk about what you know, and so for myself, I graduated proving that the Air Force won't take anybody, but they will take a degree in anthropology, specifically archaeology. And so that's kind of how I see the world. And I take a bit of wisdom given by two great historians of the 20th century, the famous historian couple Will and Ariel Durant, who said that history is like a river, and all of our lives are tributaries. And those tributaries spill into the river, and they change it, they make it grow, and they affect its course. And relating to the history of flight, that's kind of how it is. Human beings have always had a fascination with flying. If we look back even to ancient Babylon and Assyria, we see many statues and frescoes of men and beasts and gods with wings. Now, you could argue that maybe they weren't thinking about flying as we perceive it, but clearly they associated the ability to fly with a certain sort of magnificence, a kind of a divinity. And you can imagine that in a world where most people never ventured more than a couple of miles from their homes, where the outcome of a battle could very much depend on what you could see about the enemy, and being on the ground, all you could really see through the smoke and the dust was pretty much what he could see. So the advantage you would get would be huge. So to imagine that you could fly, that you could soar above it all, that you could see what was going on, that you could travel unobstructed, what an amazing thing. And yet it was still a realm of fantasy and of myth. It wasn't until maybe the 8th century BC when a little story was written that has been known for many years before that, but was put on paper by Homer. And you all know this story, the story of Daedalus and Icarus. But this is the first time in written history where we can see an example of flight going from the realm of myth to perhaps the realm of reality and of mechanics. Now, as you may recall, Icarus and Daedalus were imprisoned on the island of Crete in a tower by the king of Crete. And in order to escape, Daedalus built a set of wings out of feathers and wax and string and leather so that him and his son could fly across the Mediterranean and escape. So he built these wings, gave a pair to his son, and then warned him, don't fly too close to the sun or the wax will melt. And of course, they took off. You can imagine Icarus's excitement to soar through the air. And the young man in his exuberance didn't listen to his father. There's a lesson in that, young people. Didn't listen to his father, soared too high, the wax melted, his wings fell apart, and he plunged into the Mediterranean and was never seen again. For many centuries afterwards, many millennia afterwards, flight continued to be a bit of a dream, but got closer and closer to reality. In the 14th century, Leonardo da Vinci came up with some of the earliest practical ideas for a flying machine. Now, granted, we've all probably seen shows on those, and they're maybe not as practical as they seem, but Da Vinci put into effect real understanding of flight, of weight considerations, of power sources needed, the basic principles of aerodynamics. And in designing some of his machines, he really thought that this could be a possible thing. Of course, it didn't happen. There were still a few pieces missing. Finally, in the 19th century, someone invented something called the internal combustion engine. And for the first time, the engineering of the day and the power of an engine would allow humankind to finally take the skies. And then on December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers, certainly not the first people to design an aircraft, but the first people to do it just right, were able to achieve powered flight and release man from the bonds of Earth for the first time. It's hard for us to imagine in our world the breakneck pace of the development of aviation post-Wright brothers. We live in a world where cars are ubiquitous. We all have mega computers in our pockets. Aircraft are everywhere, and we just take it for granted. But between 1903 and 1914, at the outbreak of World War I, we went from one aircraft in the entire world to many thousands of aircraft. And by the end of World War I, the belligerents in the war had built up to 145,000 aircraft. An amazing thing. Many lessons were learned in World War I, but mostly aircraft were thought of as reconnaissance vehicles, and all the great aerial battles were pretty much to keep the other guy from being able to see your stuff. But post-war, a lot of great thinkers, Toohey Spatz, Billy Mitchell, Jimmy Doolittle, came up with all sorts of innovations, both mechanical and theoretical, of what could be done with air power in the future should mankind ever go to war again. Although, of course, it was the war to end all wars and there would never be warfare again. Unfortunately, that proved to not be true. And in 1941, America was dragged into World War II. Unfortunately, many of the lessons that might have been learned at the time were not. And the Air Force, or the Air Corps at the time, had to learn those lessons in a lot of suffering and blood. Now, I will say, I think for my generation and generations younger than me, there's a misunderstanding of the events of World War II. For us, it tends to start in Normandy, at the landings and Operation Overlord, the Battle of the Bulge, all those great events. And I can understand why we tend to think that. We want to glorify our military past. And by that point in the war, the U.S. military was hitting on all cylinders. It was a well-oiled machine. But we forget that was several years into the war. And prior to that, during Operation Torch, America landed in North Africa. And there we learned many painful lessons. At the Battle of Kasserine Pass, we outnumbered the Axis powers by nearly 3-1. And yet, because of mismanagement and a complete misunderstanding of how to apply air power, we suffered horrific casualties. Now, we won the day, but lost far more personnel and equipment than the Germans did. It was a hard lesson. The first airborne assault infantry on Sicily is such a story, just a comedy of errors, that it would be comical if the results weren't so tragic. Yet little by little, we learned our lessons. Those great thinkers who had sometimes been pushed to the side, like Billy Mitchell had been court-martialed for his ideas of an independent Air Force, eventually their ideas came to the forefront, and we learned how to use air power effectively. And by the end of the war, we knew what we were doing, and we were dominating the skies. As previously stated, on September 18th, 1947, Billy Mitchell's dream came true. And under the National Security Act, the Air Force was created, and a truly independent Air Force where we could do the things that the Air Force does best came into being. And for 77 years since, the Air Force has ruled the skies. We have never not had air dominance in any battle that we've ever been in. And sometimes it's been easy, and sometimes it's been hard, and has been paid for with suffering and many years in internment camps. But we've never stopped fighting, and the Air Force has continued to prove its worth both on and off the battlefield. So now we come full circle. Why celebrate this particular birthday? Well, I think it's because birthdays, anniversaries give us a chance to pause for reflection, to look at what we've done in the past so that we can see where we are in the present and so that we can envision our future. As we reach nearly a quarter of a century into this current century, we are faced with numerous threats. Drones, autonomous vehicles, robots, cyber attacks, ideas that when I was young were purely the realm of science fiction have become the concrete reality of the day. And the young people over there, the young people that I instruct in ROTC, they are going to be the ones faced with those challenges. And they are going to have to learn how to deal with those. And by drawing on the lessons of the past, by drawing on what has been, these young folks are going to be able to learn how to address those challenges in a way that will hopefully allow the Air Force of the United States to continue as we are for another 77 years. And a final thought before I conclude. As I said earlier, I think that history is a river and all of us are tributaries that contribute. Everyone here today is part of that. Are you a former or currently serving member of the U.S. Armed Forces? Thank you. The work you have done has contributed to make the Air Force what it is today. No matter how small you think it is part of our story. Are you someone who serves indirectly, whether serving at this wonderful VA facility or in any other part of the DOD? Thank you. Your support is what allows serving active duty service members to do what they do and not have to worry about many of the cares that would otherwise make it very difficult for us to fully engage in the fight. Finally, are you a parent, spouse, child, or loved one for someone who has served? Thank you. Your patience and support have contributed immeasurably to the success of your airman or soldier and to the overall mission of the Air Force. Your struggles are known and your tears are counted. Thank you so much for allowing me time to be with you today. It really has been an honor to be asked to do this and to be here on this, the 77th anniversary of the Air Force's creation. I'm looking forward to finishing my time in the service and to molding this next generation. and I'm hoping that they will be able to carry the country forward into another great century. Thank you very much.
Major Moon, thank you so much for sharing your passions with us this morning, the history, the expertise, the service, and the continued service that you provide. Thank you. Now I'd like to welcome back Chaplain Shear for our benediction.
As we prepare to move forth with the celebration, I invite you just to, for a moment, look up at the sky. Look up at this beautiful, beautiful sky today that is the home of the Air Force, and take in a breath and maybe feel some gratitude for the safety that we all enjoy right now because of all of the dutiful Air Force men and women that are serving us. With that gratitude, I invite you to hear the words of this benediction. Loving God, grant to the living grace, and to those who have gone before us in service rest, and to our nation peace and clarity of vision. We ask for continued light to guide us on our way, courage to support us, and blessings to unite us in service for this country and for one another. May it be so. Amen.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our ceremony. I just wanted to share that I'm from Dayton, Ohio, where we have Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and I've been to many Air Force celebrations celebrating the work that our airmen do. And this has been one of the nice celebrations that I have been to, and I'm appreciative of all of our speakers and the team that put this together. I'd also like to say that our airmen are there to provide America with air power, and we benefit from the way they defend our nation and protect us against our adversaries. And they reassure our partners and our allies and help diplomacy proceed from a position of strength. So may God bless the men and women of our Air Force, and may God bless the United States and liberty for all America. Thank you. Now let us join some cake and celebrate the 77th birthday of the United States Air Force.
We're gonna sing the song. You gonna sing the song, or you guys gonna play it? You don't have it, so if you got a program, the Air Force song is on the back of it. We're gonna sing the Air Force song.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Wentz is going to lead us in the singing of the Air Force song.
Here we go.
Ready? Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, zooming to meet our thunder. Atom boys, give her the gun. Down we dive, spouting our flame from under. Off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame or go down in flame. Hey, nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force. Whoa!